Hello, hi, welcome. I'm just that dude over there, and if the title of this video is anything like I'm thinking, it should be self-explanatory. Fire Emblem, or more specifically, the Blazing Sword, is a prequel to Fire Emblem 6, where instead of following this red-haired chipboard, you follow this red-haired chipboard. I don't plan on covering the story too much, I'll probably just explain it when the context is needed. However, I guess I should go into the rules for this run now. Basically, FE7 is really easy among Fire Emblem fans. What I wanted to do, because I really didn't want to do any Iron Mans or low turn count runs, I wanted to see if it was possible to beat the game with only 5 units. Any other unit that came along the way would either have to be killed or non-recruited. The only action they could do is wait. I can move them and they can get into battle, but as long as they don't do damage or assist allies, it's fair game. With all that being said, let's see if I was able to lead my small task force to glory. Before we can actually engage with the game, we have to go through the early parts, which means we unlock our first unit for the run, and somebody's body pillow. Lindis of Sakai. Lyn is a sword-locked infantry unit who's built like a Myrmidon, meaning high skill and speed but low defenses. Normally she's fine, but for a challenge like this, she's going to be a bit of a nuisance. Nothing will outspeed her, but because of her shaky defense and res, we'll need to rely on her ability to dodge. Fortunately, the prologue is a breeze. Lyn and I get attacked by some bandits, but since these are tutorial chapters, the enemy has no concept of the weapon triangle. Lyn makes work of the enemies and reclaims the home they barged into. Chapter 1. After leaving home with Lyn, we run into more bandits. 2 Knights of Caelin attempt to help us with these guys, but Lyn ends up clearing them before they have the chance to offer. The Knights of Caelin refer to themselves as Kent and Sane, who reveal to Lyn that she is the successor to Caelin territory. Lyn drags me and the Knights on her quest to reconnect with her grandfather, before her great-uncle Lundgren can kill him. After clearing some more bandits at a temple, a monk then reveals to Lyn that there is a sacred blade that only she can use. The blade is known as the Manikati, and because of my hoarding ass, we will almost never use this. Chapter 3 arrives and our first challenge of the run is here. See, as we progress through the game, we will need to amass some gold to arm our units. In the upper village, they will offer you 2,000 gold for saving them from the oncoming threats. What you are supposed to do is visit the village with Florina on turn 1 and dip since she can fly over the terrain with her Pegasus Knight. However, since Florina cannot be used, she's more or less a pawn ready to be slaughtered. So my strategies to obtain the gold was simple. Send Florina to her death to buy Lyn some time to reach the village. However, despite Lyn's best efforts, Florina could not dodge forever and perishes to the oncoming brigand. I seriously thought I had lost out with the gold, but I had one last plan to hopefully make it in time. I had Sane wait nearby the house to try and bait the enemy to focus on him. I didn't think it would work, but apparently I was wrong. For whatever reason, the AI chose to prioritize killing Sane over ruining the lives of the many in the house. Lyn was able to obtain the gold and defeat the brigand, along with reaching level 8. Now as a united front of 5, for some reason Florina survived her apparent death, our next job as the Lindis Legion is to protect a humble woman named Natalie from the oncoming brigands. We protect Natalie from the invaders, don't murder her husband, and move on our way. Chapter 5 marks an important event for our challenge as we obtain another usable member for the run. Sarah the Tsundere. Listen, Sarah isn't a great unit, but we can't keep wasting our gold on vulneraries. Sarah provides the party with better healing and great resistance. Well, compared to Lyn anyway. To provide Sarah with experience, I have her heal the units I throw on the front line for Lyn. Lyn is too strong at this point to take damage thanks to her high avoid. Meanwhile, the rejects take a lot of damage, which is more experience for Sarah. Chapter 6. So, I want to be as transparent as possible. This chapter, we obtain Matthew as a unit. Thieves are really valuable as units. They can open doors and chests that contain some very valuable items in the long run. However, Matthew, or any thief in this matter, isn't a great unit. The only chance to promote them into an assassin is way in the late game. By then, they don't have many experiences to level up, which means that their utility comes from being able to open doors. So, no, Matthew does not join the council of viable units, but I do need to bend the rules just a tiny bit for him. If there's any possible map where I cannot proceed because of a locked door, I am able to use Matty Boy to open the door with a lockpick. And no, I can't just open any door with a door key and then use the excuse, "Oh, now I need to use Matt in order to progress." Because that's a horseshit excuse. Chapter 7. With our newfound gold from completing Chapter 6, we buy more healing rods for Sarah and miss out on a pure water from a nearby village. Thankfully, the map isn't that hard as Lynn skyrockets to level 14 by the end of it. As we're making our plans to move out, the traveling bard asks for our help to recover a special ring for his sister. However, because of our long fight, we're too exhausted to look up and move on. Also, don't forget this little boy, because he is important for the story. Chapter 8. As we progress through the continent of Alib, Urk, a traveling magician, gets sniped and warns the group about the oncoming party trying to kill us. We take this time to restock and defeat the enemy with our advanced knowledge of the weapon triangle. Chapter 9. Getting ambushed in some Pog, Lynn uses the Monikati to cut down her foes as her legion arrives at Lundgren's doorsteps. Chapter 10, and the finale of the Lynn saga. As Lynn and Sarah work together to cut down the enemies, the rest of the Lindis Legion gets cut down from the battle. Lynn cuts down Lundgren and finally reconnects with her grandfather. Me and Lynn go our separate ways, and as the sun goes down, we recount the tales of our fallen comrades. Now, we have a choice to make. FE7 gives you the option to pick between two different lords to continue the story. The Virgin Eliwood, or the Chad Hector. If I want to truly show off my brain power, I should pick Hector hard mode, as it's much harder than Eliwood's story. However, since this is my first attempt at something like this officially, I wanted to see if it was just possible. So I decided to do Eliwood hard mode since it was something I was familiar with. Chapter 11. 1 year after I successfully guided Lynn through her personal drama, I find that a village I was attending gets raided by some bandits. Luckily, I come across the Marquesa Ferre, Eliwood. I didn't bring this up yet because I forgot this happened, but a year ago during Lynn's raid, we came across Eliwood who was helping the traveling bard from before. Thankfully, Eliwood is a part of the 5-man Conquer the World scheme, so he is allowed to proceed. The rest of the gang though are not, and are either offed or sent to the bench. In case it wasn't clear yet, 3 of the 5 slots that I have available to me are being held by the main lords of the game. It's impossible to clear Lynn's portion without Lynn, since she's the only unit in the prologue. Eliwood is the main character after chapter 10, so he becomes auto-deployed every chapter. Meanwhile, Hector gets force deployed after a certain point, but that's not much of a problem since Hector is basically God. As everyone but Marcus dies, Eliwood and I form a plan to head to Santa Ruz to seek aid in Eliwood's quest to find his dad. Chapter 12. As Ellwood, Marcus, and I travel about, we get ambushed again when one of the greatest assets arrives from the heavens. Lord Hector of House Ostia arrives, with his mighty wolf veil to bail out Ellwood. Despite Ellwood single-handedly getting rid of most of the oncoming threat, we take our time filling up our inventory with axes and blades before reuniting with Sarah and Matthew, who survived last year's brutality. As our army moves out, I give Ellwood the secret book to read to improve his skill. Chapter 13. Before we begin battle, Matthew informs everyone of an associate of his who owes him that might appear on the battlefield. Deciding not to let an enemy into our ranks, we ruthlessly cut through their ranks, leaving none alive. But don't be worried, he was just some guy from Sakai. There is a village in the Upper East area that would allow you to access a special request from a peddler, hoping to make a fortune from some of the lords. However, with only 2 units to use, a tank in Marcus and Sarah, we were in no position to sit through an ambush. Chapter 14. Seeking guidance, we ask the Marquess of Loss, Eric, for help. But Eric is mean and decides to stab Ellwood in the back. Hector shows up to put Eric in his place and puts him under interrogation. Meanwhile, Sarah finds a red-haired girl named Priscilla, who's looking for her long-lost brother. Eric then spills the beans to Ellwood that his father is working behind the scenes to rule all of Alib, and Ellwood's father is hot on their trail. Chapter 15. Ellwood and Hector get a distress call from Kaelin, and what do you know, we reconnect with Lindis. So after killing off more allies, we reconnect with a cup of coffee. Chapter 16. This is a chapter where things get real. Not story-wise, but gameplay-wise. So let's look at the map and I'll explain. In the lower corner of the map, reinforcement cavaliers will show up and attack us from behind. This is bad because we finally get access to Merlinus this chapter. The only way to level up Merlinus is to keep him alive. Merlinus gives us access to the convoy to either pick up or drop off stuff. My solution is to have Sane and Marcus act as meat shields while Sarah heals them to practice. Meanwhile, the main gang will defeat the boss. And after beating up an edgelord with stupid red hair and sacking off Priscilla and Florina to the Cavaliers, we succeed, and all it cost us was the troops we were supposed to be protecting. But that doesn't matter. Now we get access to Chapter 16X, or the Guiding Chapter. Here awaits the final character for our run, and maybe our best magic candidate for the early game, Kinalis. Kinalis is a dark magic unit with growths. But what's important about Kinalis is his magic type. Kinalis gets access to the Luna Zone, which really helps us with our final boss. I want to exploit this game as much as I can without using cheats, and compared to the magic that Kinalis gets compared to Sarah, Kinalis will deal 10 to 100% more damage compared to her light magic. It'll be no sweat too. All we need to do is... Oh, I'm sorry, what was that? I didn't hear you. What do you mean we don't get access to 16X? What are you talking about? Oh, you've gotta be... So, I forgot. To access 16X, we need to keep at least one of the self-sacrificing green units alive when seizing the throne. However, in my rush to get Hector to try and finish the boss, the last remaining green unit perished to an archer, meaning I lost out on one of the characters I was going to use. So rather than replay the chapter to get access to 16X, mostly because it was too late for me to realize, I decided to change my last unit to Pent. He's a late game unit from Etruria, and is the only other magic unit worth investing in that late into the game. Chapter 17. Our next mission is a defend map. Our goal is to prepare for the Dread Isles, to search for Ellwood's dad, but not die to all enemies that storm our ship. I would have used this opportunity to train a certain Dark Mage, but without dwelling on the past, I used this chapter initially to steal a guiding ring from the boss. Editor's note. I realized that if this plan had actually succeeded, that means we would have used Matthew, but trying to get promotional items in this game requires a thief in some regard. You'll see what I mean later on. But after how many enemies started showing up, in combination with how hard they hit, I abandoned the plan altogether for pure survival. By the end of the chapter, it was becoming clear that our lords and Sarah would reach level 20 before returning home. Chapter 18. Another Fog of War map where we initially have to defend against the pirates and raiders from Uhai of the Black Mag. Our reward for clearing the chapter is an Orion's Bowl, which is virtually useless outside of the 5 grand we get from selling it. If we were a bit faster, Len and Hector may have suffered from the Dread Isle's atmosphere, resulting in a fight. But because we took our time, I was able to provide the duo counseling as we made Uhai. Chapter 19. Our next attempt for a guiding ring in this run. We have to race Legol and some other Black Fang thieves for it. However, despite this, I prey on the chance to recruit Legol with Lynn in case the guiding ring is stolen. Listen, I know it gets against the run, but I really needed to get this dang ring for Sarah. Thankfully, I didn't need to compromise this run this way, because I forgot how stolen treasure works in Fire Emblem. So long as I kill the thief before they get away, I can secure the treasure they stole for myself. So with the power of Lyn using an iron sword, I swiped the guiding ring and promoted a level 15 Sarah into a bishop. Marching deep into the Dread Isle, we wind up in a temple holding the Dragon's Gate, where we learn the true identity behind the traveling bard and his sister. These two, Ninian and Nils, are in actuality dragons who turned into humans thanks to the power of an item known as the Dragon Stone. Nurgle, the clear bad guy, then attempts to bring out more dragons to Aleve by using the Dragon's Gate, but before he's able to, Eliwood's dad injures him and dies swiftly after. As Eliwood begins to cry over his father's corpse, Nurgle gets away, leaving the 4 of us to begin to wonder how we'll make it out of this adventure alive. And that's where I'm going to cut it off for this video. We made it through a majority of the game, but as the maps get harder, I'll need to explain a bit more, and this video has already gone on long enough. Stay tuned for next time, where I'll finish up this tale, and how I played Fire Emblem the Blazing Sword with 5 units.